It's Tuesday, March 21st, 2017, and this is Bob and Ed's Movie Podcast.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Ed.
We were slightly late this week due to travel plans.
Yep, travel, life, stuff like that. It happens.
But, so we were going back on Oscar talk. We're going to talk about the White Helmets and also Oscar film from a couple of years ago. We're going to talk about Argo. But first, we actually have a request.
Yes. Oh, listener request.
Listener request. In a previous episode, we mentioned Chekhovs Gun, and they didn't know what that was.
So just what is this definition of Chekhov's gun? It's dramatic principle. It states that every element in the story must be necessary and irrelevant elements should be removed. As a quote, it was said, never place a loaded rifle on stage if it isn't going to go off.
Yes.
So it's something that's introduced and at some point, and it's going to be an element in the story later on.
Yes. What I think I referenced it in a previous one. One of the things that I don't like is a obvious Chekhov's gun, where it's like it usually happens in superhero films or like the Sherlock Holmes film or a couple others, where it's all like, they introduce something in the first 10 minutes, and you're like, well, this will come really in handy if you're ever in this situation.
Yeah, if you ever happen to run into a situation where you're going to need, to drop plutonium rods from orbit, and it's like, if we only had,
if we only had a submarine.
Exactly. If we could just drop plutonium, something that could be dropped from the orbit that could do this. Like, what about plutonium rods? It's like, oh, okay, well.
Yeah. I like my Chekhov's gun in that, that was introduced earlier, and you thought maybe that, it was used in that scene. That's why it was important, not later on.
To me, an excellent example of Chekhov's gun would be the load lifter in Aliens, where at the time you think, this is just an example of showing that she can do things other than just be pretty, and she has more depth to her, and that's all that's going to happen. And then by the end of the movie, it's like, we were introduced to this for drastically different reasons.
Yes, that is a perfect example of a good use of it. Because if it never gets used in the remainder of the film, you're not sitting there going, why did they have her use the load lifter?
Why did they have a load lifter? Exactly. It doesn't make any sense. But if you didn't introduce the load lifter, you're like, well, when was that ever established that she could have used the load lifter?
Yes.
That would be a Chekhov's gun. The anti-Chekhov's gun, one of the actually problems I kind of had with Wolverine was they introduced a family that had a bunch of horses and that a son could ride horses, and here's the medals of me, I have my riding and my lasso skills and he's dead.
And he's dead.
It's like, well then what was so important about all the horses and the medals? And okay, we could have done without that. Yeah. So that would be the example of Chekhov's gun that never went off. It's like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah. You introduce something and it never gets used.
Yeah, it never gets used. So that would be what we're talking about with Chekhov's gun, of either something that's obvious that just never happens, or
something that, it's one of those, the best Chekhov's gun is the one where you're like, okay, and then later on you're like, oh wow, that came back.
Oh, that's why they introduced that.
Instead of hey, we got these load lifters here, I know how to operate them, and they never use it. That's actually the whole thing. If she just goes, I'm certified on how to use these, and they go, oh no, we don't want you to.
Yeah, we don't want you to use it, or
okay,
no, you can't use it, or something along those lines.
And it's also bad when it's like, if somewhere in the film someone goes, I wish I had a load lifter to attack these aliens. Yeah. And then later on you see it, you're like, okay, well.
So yeah, in fact, Aliens is like, you want to talk about there. Just thinking about it, there's a lot of things in Aliens where it's like, there's a lot of Chekhov's guns. At some point you see the second dropship. At some point there's things in it where you don't necessarily think of it. I mean, it's there and they introduce it, but they don't make a big deal about it. But it is there. But if you never saw it again, it wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah. But later on, it's like, I guess they did introduce that earlier in the film, and it's being used now, and so we're not surprised by it. But it wasn't. We didn't get hit over the hammer.
There was no scene with the second dropship going. Well, if anything happens to the first one,
exactly. Why is there two dropships? Oh, in case something happens to the first one, that would be like, oh my god, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Well, that means we know something's going to happen to the first one.
Yeah. So I think we've
we've established
shot Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, shot Chekhov's gun.
So
on Doug Loves Movies, they talk about what movies have you seen lately, and it's like, well, on a plane I saw, and so we're going to talk about two films I saw on a plane.
Yes.
So the first one is Argo, Academy Award winning film, Best Picture, right?
Best Picture.
Best Picture. It's the first time I ever seen it. Saw it on a plane. I've always been told to watch exciting movies on planes, not boring movies on planes, because you'll never pay attention. I paid attention through this entire film.
It's really good.
Yeah, it is. It is really good. It is. I understand why it won Best Picture. I have no idea why it's at 7 point. Was it
7.7 right now?
I don't get that at all. Unless I think you even said it because of all the people that hate Ben Affleck.
That's the only reason I can think of.
That makes no sense to me. It doesn't.
It's a really.
What did you think of the film?
I really enjoyed it. I think the way it's structured is really good. It's one of those. Now I haven't seen the latest Ben Affleck directed film, which I hear isn't good, but Ben Affleck knows how to direct himself.
Yeah.
Which, is good. Alan Arkin's good. John Goodman's great in it.
Yeah.
Bryan Cranston, for his little bit that he's in.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Bryan Cranston.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good. If there was a negative, all the government stuff, I kind of got lost in, okay, who's who?
That was an issue I had where I'm like...
Wait, are you Canadian? Are you a CIA? Like, for example, it wasn't until the end of the movie. It's like, wait, Bryan Cranston was part of the CIA?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I knew that just because I knew that Ben Affleck's
story?
Character was CIA, and I figured they were colleagues. But there's so many other characters where, like, Secretary of State doesn't like this. I'm like, wait, which one was that?
Yeah,
one?
which one is Secretary of State? It would have been nice if we knew who. That's where the little things at the bottom of the screen, Secretary of State, so and so, would have been maybe nice, so that they don't have to say, Secretary of blah 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 blah. It's like, okay, that was unnecessary exposition. But we could have gone for a little like, okay, this is who this is. Meanwhile, back at the State Department, or meanwhile back at whatever.
Yeah, meanwhile.
Because I did get lost at times.
There's that one meeting where everyone's coming up with like bicycles and
Yeah, I know, because in that meeting, it was like, I bet that was really what they came up with. Let's just say that they're teachers. It's like, okay, you do realize there's no more teachers there.
It's like agriculture. It's winter.
Yeah, it's winter. What are you talking about?
Oh, we're gonna wait till it thaws. 6 months from now.
You're gonna wait 6 months? I don't know if you noticed this. They're gonna figure this out.
It's not gonna take long.
Yeah. It was a really good movie, and being on a plane, of course, it was it's like all plane stuff. There is kind of like the comedy of like, oh, look how easy it was to get on a plane compared to now. So I was like, it's harder to get on a plane in the United States now than it was to get on a plane in revolutionary Iran in 1980. It's like, oh my God, I have to go through more checkpoints than they had to go through.
You probably did actually go through more
Yes,
checkpoints.
I went through, and we happened to go through a particularly like serious checkpoint of studying my identification, looking at my face to see if it matched up, just other stuff where it's like, geez, I didn't know it was this much scrutiny. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I think there was one other thing I didn't like, as much as I liked Ben Affleck. Everyone else looked like the people that they were supposed to be, except for Ben Affleck. It was like jarring when they're showing the end. It was like everyone actually looked pretty much like the person that they were playing. Until you got to Ben Affleck, it was like, you look nothing like the person you were playing.
No.
It's kind of bizarre. Why did you go through all the trouble of everything else? Look, we even got some Muslim woman to sit in a Jeep to look just like the Muslim woman who was sitting in a Jeep in 1980. just so it would look so authentic. But then we got Ben Affleck. It's like, what?
It's called Look Who's Directing It.
Yes, I can see that. It's not like it was bad.
I like the fact that, like, Scoop McNair, which you referenced, Douglas Movies, is like a recurring guest. He's on Halt and Catch Fire.
Okay.
With somebody else who's also on Halt and Catch Fire. Both of them are in this film playing a married couple. So that's kind of funny.
Yeah. I haven't seen a lot of the episodes of Halt and Catch Fire, but I know what you're talking about. And now that kind of makes sense. I was wondering, like...
Those people look familiar?
Yeah, I was like, all these people look familiar. And they look familiar in that they seem like they look the same, since Halt and Catch Fire takes place in...
1982?
Oh, I thought it was 85, but whatever.
Well, no, it depends on what season.
Which season? I'm thinking of the first one, so I guess that would be...
Early 80s.
Yeah, early 80s.
Early to mid 80s.
Yeah, so...
84,
yeah, so I guess that makes sense. That's why they looked similar. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So, Alan Arkin's great. It's just kind of neat. It's just one of those, like, weird, like, oh, wow, like, that would be weird if, like, hey, I'm just hanging out, What's actually fun is, I have a friend who was snuck out of that country.
Oh, really?
As a baby.
Oh, wow.
She was born on a U.S. military base that is now, I don't know.
Not a U.S. military base.
Not a U.S. military base. It's entertaining because if you ever loses her birth certificate, it's like the amount of paperwork that she has to go through to get, like,
I bet.
something.
I bet. Yeah, so that'd be tough. So, yeah, they had to evacuate everybody.
Yeah, like
pretty
pronto.
quick. Yeah, pretty quick.
That was not a situation that was like, oh, that's like 3 years.
Yeah, we got some time to pull out. It was like everyone needs to get out, and they need to get out now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was it's pretty good. What would you give the film?
I think I'd give it a 9 originally.
Yeah, that's what I'd give it, a 9. Not a perfect film, but it's like this, perfectly acceptable for it to win Best Picture.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why it's at 7.7. Doesn't make any sense.
It's really entertaining. They may have fudged a lot on the history of certain things.
Yeah, but that's all right. I mean, they were making a movie, and it's, you only have 2 hours to tell the story, and you can't get too in depth, and plus it's an American one, so they're going to skew it towards the American side of the story, and I know that wasn't, didn't make the Canadians too happy, who did a lot more than what they make it out to be.
Well, not just the Canadians. I hear, like, New Zealand, and I think probably Australia, and a couple others, like...
They did a lot too?
They did a lot, but... But
yeah, you can't go into too much. How many characters do you got to have?
And it is one of those, like... You got a movie does have to have some sort of drama. Yeah. And if you're like, oh no, it's pretty easy. He went in there. We're like, well, everyone was like, all right, and they all left. It's like, yeah,
where's the drama in that?
Where's the drama? It's like, oh no, it was actually pretty easy. It worked out. It's like, oh.
One I watched would be the documentary White Helmets.
Yeah, I watched it last week also, just not on a plane.
Yeah.
Not exactly. Which was glad.
Yeah,
I was actually glad.
Yeah, mistake. Don't watch that on the plane.
Don't watch it on a plane.
Don't watch it in a room with like a place full of people. It's a pretty emotionally gripping story.
I think 8 minutes in, I was already like, wow, my house has like tons of onion cutting going on.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense documentary about the humanitarian group in Syria that shows up when there's a rocket attack, bombing. Car bombing, whatever. So whatever sort of explosive goes off in within wherever they are. Yeah, this particular group is in Aleppo, I believe.
The
first thing we see.
First thing you see is Aleppo.
So any bombing, any car bombing, so it could be rockets. They showed helicopters dropping stuff,
which I did not realize.
I didn't realize that either.
And they even talked about like the type, like, oh well, that's a different type. Helicopters drop this type, and that planes drop this type.
Yeah, and then of course, the car bombings by ISIS and the attacks by these other groups, and so this humanitarian group goes in and tries to pull as many people out of the building as possible and save as many people as they can.
But one of the key things is it's not a humanitarian group, as in like, oh, we all have we're all EMTs and we all like have super advanced training on this. It's all like, oh,
It's
what
just
were you
these
doing?
guys, you know?
Yeah. It was just like, oh, what were you doing before? I was a tailor.
Yeah.
Oh, what did you do before?
I was a blacksmith.
I was a plumber.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like, well, why aren't you doing it now? It's like, have you seen these buildings?
Yeah, have you seen the buildings?
Yeah. It's like...
We just try to get to day to day. And so, yeah, they put on white helmets. They go in and they...
With, like, no masks on and there's
Yeah,
just
exactly.
dust everywhere.
There's
and you're
dust
like,
everywhere.
oh, this is... I'm like, oh...
But yeah, it was interesting about how them doing that. They go to Turkey to learn new techniques and get new equipment.
And that's like super sad.
Yeah.
Like, which you don't think, but you're just like, ugh.
Yeah.
The weirdest for me, and slightly different for you, for me, it was one of those, let me look up something. Oh, wow. They probably trained where I was at, and
I was wondering about that.
And where they, like Aleppo. I was only like 130 miles from Aleppo at one point in my life. Like,
not that far away.
It was closer to me than I am to Vegas right now.
Yeah, that's just crazy.
Just like total destruction that far away, and I was just like,
super crazy.
I was complaining about it because my hamburger was slightly overcooked.
Yeah. And then
like,
here's
these
these
guys
people.
don't know how to make hamburgers.
they're getting their buildings blown up.
Yeah.
Then it gets into the geopolitics about how like the Russians say they're attacking ISIS when they, everyone all the white helmets are like, no, they're shooting at civilian dwellings.
They're just bombing indiscriminately because they're like, ISIS might be there.
Yeah, it might be there, so we're gonna blow it up, and and then other things. The Syrian military are doing the same thing, but ISIS is blowing things up because they think that there are people helping the Syrians, and so it's just things just keep getting blown up, and
that's the problem with like being a non-combatant in a chaos situation like that, because like every side's probably gonna like screw up and attack you.
Yeah,
which is actually the whole point of the boys' book that he read in school.
Oh, yeah.
My brother Sam is dead. It's about the Revolutionary War. But it's basically like, one side of the family wants to be part of the group, the other side's against it, and both sides end up attacking the family at some point in the book. And you're like...
Because there's someone in the building that's fighting for the other side.
Or they think there's somebody in the building.
Or they could be, yeah.
Could be.
So it's just best just to blow it up. That way, nuke them from orbit just to be safe.
Yeah. Just be safe.
Yep.
It won an Academy Award.
It was deserving.
It was totally deserving.
It was a good documentary.
Yeah. It got its point across.
Wasn't very long.
40 minutes.
Yeah, 40 minutes.
40 minutes, but somehow felt longer. I think just because of the sadness, like 10 minutes in.
Yeah, it's like, it's not exciting. There's nothing funny.
Yeah, there's no laughs. It's just like, oh wow, you're 10 minutes in, you're gonna punch me in the gut. And
I think one of the cameramen get blown up.
Yeah,
that was I think the cameraman just died, and that's like it's crazy to watch that. Like, oh my god, I think he's dead.
And, like, I don't think that guy's. I don't think he made it.
I don't think it's the same cameraman anymore, and so it's bizarre watching it.
It's worth a watch. It's on Netflix.
Yeah, so when you get a chance, watch it. It is really good.
Yeah.
It is really good.
You understand, not to get too political here, because I'm not, it's one of those, like, that's the reason why we have refugees.
Yes.
It's not because, I just want to go back to my house. It's like, their house isn't there anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Their block isn't there anymore.
Yeah, it's another one of those that remind you that the Middle East is very complicated. And there's nothing simple about it. There's a lot of, when you just listen to them talk, it's like, this is complex. Now I remember watching Syriana and remembering this is, none of this makes any sense. And it was like, well, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those like, well, isn't that also a bad guy? Yeah, but he's a bad guy of this other bad guy, and we're considered that guy
a bad guy, but he's a bad guy of that bad guy, and that bad guy a bad guy. It's like, oh, jeez, you lost me.
You lost me. Why? Where? What? What's going on?
But yeah, bottom line, it's a really good story.
All right.
Really good documentary, and we highly recommend it.
Yeah.
It's deserving of his Academy Award. Other than that, I don't think we have much to talk about. We are behind on newer movies.
We have to see King
Kong,
Skull Island,
Beauty and the
Beauty and
Beast. There seems to be like 50 movies dropping this week. Chips, Life. I already think there's another movie coming up that I'm already forgetting.
I hear there's this bizarre French film that we need to see.
That's all just now, and
then it just speeds up.
Yeah, there's just more and more. Yep, more and more films are coming out. This is, it's turning out to be looking like a pretty good year for film. More than last year, where there was the stretches of months went by where it was like I have no interest in going to the movie.
Yeah.
And this now I don't know how I'm going to be able to watch all this stuff. I mean, we still haven't watched Split. I mean, there's a movie that we still haven't gotten around to see, and we've been told to see. So we'll do the best we can.
All right. Well.
So I guess until next time, Scarface is overrated.
And keep your ticket stub.